All right, great. You clicked on the video, so now I know you are struggling to understand OSPF, which is completely okay. You're probably trying to understand the neighbor adjacencies and you're completely overwhelmed. Well, you definitely landed in the right place. That's exactly what I am basically here for, is to help you with just that. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down OSPF. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get started and jump into this lab.
Okay, we're in the lab now. Let's take a look and let's not be intimidated. We got a lot of routers, a switch here, and a PC. What our objective is, like I said, the first phase is just understand what OSPF is and understand that we're looking at a topology. So what? What is the whole point of all of this? Well, let's give ourselves an objective. What is it going to take if I want this PC right here to communicate with this router all the way over here? What is going to have to be needed for this information to happen? So this PC is going to need an IP address. And then when I ping this router, it's going to need an IP address, right? And right here, you can see we got 4.4.4.4 configured. That's an IP address we got configured on this router. And we have an IP address configured on this client, 10.0.1.3. Those are in two separate networks, so we know that layer 3, a router, can get us over there. So we know for this topology, we need the client to get to this router and then to get to this router. But how does this router know how to communicate with him? Well, he's directly connected. But there is a network, that loopback address, that's not directly connected to him. When I say directly connected, I mean there's a physical link right here, a physical link. That's how he knows how to get here. But once it gets here, once the information gets here, we need to figure out how is it going to get all the way to that loopback address of 4.4.4.4. And that's where OSPF comes in. What OSPF does is every IP address or network that you want OSPF to participate in, all you have to do is configure that. And for our example, we want OSPF to participate with the 4.4.4.4 network. What I mean is I want OSPF to tell all the other OSPF neighbors, hey, if you want to get to 4444, come over to my router. And that's the beauty of OSPF. You don't have to sit here and say, router 3, this is how you get to router 2, router 2, this is how you get to 4.4.4. It does it dynamically. That's what it is all about. The routers are talking amongst themselves in dynamic routing and static routing. You as the administrator have to go in there into the command line and say, network X goes to network Y goes to network Z. Hopefully all of that makes sense. Okay, our first step to simplify this as much as possible is all we want to do is configure OSPF on one router with one process ID. That's all we're doing. This is how you configure OSPF. First step, just configure the router to say, hey, I'm ready to run OSPF. Let's go on router 3 and start this off. If we launch router 3 right here, okay, starting from the beginning, we're gonna go conf T to get in configure mode. All we're doing is calling OSPF, or we're just letting the router know we're configuring it to run OSPF, saying, hey, we want you to dynamically discover neighbors. We want you to dynamically learn about all of these routes, everything that we just talked about a few minutes ago. So the command is router OSPF, and then if you hit a question mark, it says 1 through 65,535. This is an insignificant number for neighborships, but it is required for process ID. So we're just going to pick number 1 for a lab to keep it as simple as possible. So there we go. OSPF is running. That's all we're doing right now. That's our very first step. Okay, the next step in our process here for phase 1 of configuring OSPF, we need to tell this router, hey, you have networks connected to you, and I need you to tell anybody else that is speaking OSPF language, or like they're speaking Japanese like you. If they speak OSPF, they need to know about these specific networks. Since I'm already in config mode, specifically in a sub process for router OSPF, I can run the command do show IP interface brief, exclude unassigned, And this shows me a list of IP addresses and their interfaces they're associated with. The interface we want to advertise is going to be the layer 3 interface that is connected to router 2. So for serial 030, that's the IP address. So all we have to do is advertise that network. But how do we know the network that 10002 resides on? We can use the command show interface serial 0/3/0. Again, we're in the sub process. If we go do show interface serial 0/3/0 and we scroll back up to the top, right there, we see that it's a /30 network. So we need to tell OSPF we want that specific interface 030 to be a OSPF speaking interface. To configure it to do so, all we have to do is advertise the network associated with that. That command is network, and then all you have to do is advertise that specific network. Because we know how to subnet, that 10.0.0.0 would be the network address, and then we need a wildcard mask, which is a /30, which translates to a wildcard mask, a 0.0.0. All right, guys, my wildcard mask, I made a mistake right here. This is the correct, if it was a subnet mask, but we have a wildcard mask, and this is really 3. So it would be network. That's the correct network with the correct wildcard mask, and then a .3 in area 0. All we have to do is go over to router 2 and do the same configuration. So we're just getting our practice in. So let's close this one and swing over to router 2. Okay, now we're in router 2. Again, configure T, and we want to tell the router you need to run the OSPF program. If you do question mark right here, you have the BGP dynamic routing protocol, EIGRP, OSPF, RIP. All of those you can mess around with, but this lab is OSPF. And then what do we need? That process ID. Now, if we go do show IP interface brief, exclude unassigned. Again, what networks do we want to advertise to our neighboring router? Well, the 030 network, that 10.0.0.1 IP address, we need to let them know that so that they can communicate and establish a neighborship. And we also want to let them know about loopback 4.4.4.4. So there's another way to advertise these networks. And there's actually 4 different kind of ways you can advertise a network, and I'm only showing you 2. All right, so this is the second way. So pay attention. If you go network 0.0.0.0, 255.255.255.255 area 0, this command tells your router any interface that has an IP address. You tell anybody else that's speaking OSPF that you know about how to get to that network. Boom. So now we should see, in a matter of seconds, we went from loading to full, and we have a full neighbor adjacency right here. In this video, we talked about OSPF, and to just summarize everything, more specifically, we were talking about how to configure OSPF. First, we let the router know that it was running OSPF in the first place, and then we just told it what networks we wanted to advertise. I encourage you, go ahead and do this lab yourself and have it advertise different networks or one specific network, or even just have it advertise off a specific interface. The other thing that I suggest you do is verify OSPF is running. You can find any kind of OSPF cheat sheet and look up those different kind of verification commands, because you're going to have to verify OSPF routing protocol, BGP protocols, and so many other different protocols. You need to get familiar with not only the configuration process, the verification process also. If you're struggling to do that, or you still don't understand, go ahead and let me know in the comments, and I'll create another video and we'll follow up with that. Also, if you want to download this Packet Tracer Lab and you want an easy to follow, simple guide, go ahead. The link is in the bio to my Gumroad account, where you can join this membership of a community
and get access to coaching from me one-on-one. You could book your one-on-one and learn so much more and go more in depth with your learning as I help you become that future network engineer that I know that you already are. If you found any value in this video, please like, and if you want to see more content like this, definitely subscribe, because I'm definitely coming with more videos just like this. And I'll catch you on that next video. Holla at me. Peace.